Good morning, Nicole.
Good morning, Sid.
During our intro chat, you said that a lot of people spend their entire lives chasing success, only to arrive and quietly realize they still feel empty.
There's so much behind that, right? I mean, my own experience of this, where that really started, was getting to a place where I could actually share with others about my process of realizing that I had achieved success on paper of all the things that I said that I wanted to do, and I was on track to continue. And I felt really empty inside. I felt exhausted most days, and I was honestly afraid that looking back when I was 80 that I was going to have regrets. And so when I went through my own journey and then started sharing that, I heard me too so many times. And that's when I realized this is not a unique experience that I was having. This is something more systemic. This is something that's happening to a broader group.
Right, right. I think many people experience it privately, but very few are willing to admit it publicly.
I mean, it's scary to admit that, right? It's scary to say that I don't know something or there's something inside of me that's not connecting, that we're not, society doesn't tell us that's okay. Society tells us to give us the polished version. And, everyone that's kind of achieved success they make it sound like it was easy, but when you really talk to them, that success, that easy success that they had on paper was 10, 12 years in the making. And
Right.
nobody sees the process behind it.
Yeah.
So once we surface that, it becomes okay to talk about it.
I think today's conversation will resonate with a lot of people, that's for sure. And I'm really looking forward to this. So let's get started. The following is a conversation with Nicole Anderson, a leadership coach, burnout and high performance expert, and advocate for authentic leadership. This is Pre-Zero Sports Talk podcast, and I'm your host, Sid Bensalah. Today we explore the hidden emotional cost of leadership, including burnout, identity, and purpose, and why so many high performers still feel disconnected despite external success. Thank you so much for tuning in, subscribing, and supporting the show. Your financial contributions helps us bring authentic voices, real stories, and conversations that extend beyond the game. If you'd like to support the show, please check the episode description for more. Nicole, welcome to the show. It's great finally to sit down and have this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been really looking forward to this. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. What stood out to me during our intro chat was how openly you discussed the emotional side of leadership and success. A lot of people look successful from the outside, but internally they're exhausted, overwhelmed, disconnected, and carrying pressure no one sees. I think many listeners will recognize themselves in this conversation. So I want to start here. Where did you first realize that success and fulfillment are not necessarily the same?
Well, it was a journey. I can't say there was one specific moment where it all came together, but the first indicator was I, it was really when I had kids, and everything that I had been doing up until that point I could sustain. And then when I had kids and my husband traveled quite a bit, the things that worked before no longer worked for me. And whatever I could kind of hide under the rug, I couldn't. Everything was out in the open, and everything was very raw. So that was probably the first moment where I was like, ugh, there's something else. I've got to explore this. And that's when the journey really started. It honestly took probably a good 9 to 12 months. I was following this one particular coach that was recommended to me from a coworker, and I, didn't have time to reach out. I didn't have I'll put that in quotation marks, didn't have time. And, finally it like everything just kind of hit the fan.
Hmm.
And I remember sitting outside my townhouse at the time in the car and having this 30-minute conversation with her. And it was the first time I realized that maybe there's a different way. There's certainly a different outcome that needs to happen because I could not sustain what was happening at that time.
Right. And looking back, Nicole, what warning signs were you ignoring?
My health, which is really interesting. I was moving so fast. I was listening to everything that was around me. I was following my path, my goals, the things the company wanted me to do. And, I just cracked, I just finally realized that it wasn't working, but it was my health. When my health started failing, I was like, this is not okay.
Yeah. And when you say health, Nicole, is it body and mind or?
It was my physical body that was starting to, there were some issues that were starting to come up, and I was ignoring them. I had on the to-do list to call the doctor, get the test, do all those things. It took months to actually create space for myself to go and just see what was going on. Blood pressure was rising. So I say I noticed the physical first, but the mental side of it was happening. I just hadn't gotten to the point yet where I could recognize that. But certainly that was happening at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. How much of your identity at that time you tied to achievement?
Oh, 90%, 80% maybe. I didn't know another way, Sid. Like when I grew up, I had, a go-getter mom who was kind of an IT boss. She was kind of leader in her space. She was all of 5'2", and at that time, women just weren't leaders in the workspace, especially in a male-dominated space like IT. And I saw that. I saw her, really charging. My stepdad was the same. He was very driven, very work focused, and everything, that I watched them succeed, achieve, perform. And so then you layer that on top of, and I guess we're gonna go there, I guess, because here we're gonna get real here for just a minute.
Wait, wait.
But on top of that, my own personality, my own kind of inner making, is a collaborator, a peacemaker. And so when things were starting to get unsettled in the house, I took on that role of, if I performed, if I was good, then everything was going to be okay. And so you get the combination of the environment and then my coping mechanisms. It was all performance. I really just had no clue there was another way.
Yeah, interesting. We're going to talk about this later on. But based on your experience and talking to various leaders and high achievers, why high achievers rarely satisfied?
There's always something else, right? A high achiever, I did this as well. You are moving forward. You are kind of checking the boxes, doing the things that you think you're supposed to do. And there's never a pause or a moment that says, let's celebrate this success. That doesn't happen. And I didn't do it. The leaders I've talked to over the past 5 years when I started to surface this is the number one hardest thing for them to do, is to celebrate the successes, especially their own. And because there's always something else to achieve, to do. And that's what makes them great, right? That's what makes them that particular personality style, do a lot of great things because they are internally driven. So it's not a bad thing. It's just maybe overused a bit.
Yeah, I hear you, and I try to portray myself a couple of years ago, 10 years ago, when I was hosting major events, almost 120 event a year in 12 months, meaning every 3 days we start an event and we already planning or pre-planning the number 5, 6, 7, and 8, and you always try to push the limit, and you keep asking, okay, what's next, what's next, what's next? And deep inside you want to do more, but then you ask yourself, but for who? You know, and it doesn't stop. And do ambitious people sometimes confuse achievement with their self-worth?
I think it's really common. In my experience, that is really common. There's a sense of wanting to get that external validation, whether that's from parents, whether it's from a boss, or even siblings. I've had conversations with a couple of folks that they feel like they're competing with their siblings, and social media doesn't help. Right? That's not a new conversation,
No.
but now the
Yeah.
research is really starting to show what a detrimental impact. This sense of evaluation has become the number one filter. And our brains support it because our brains want to keep us safe. Our brains want to make sure we don't get hurt. And the way that it does that keeps us with what we know. And so we're constantly evaluating and critiquing ourselves, others, and then the external environment. Just it fuels it. So yeah, it makes sense that performance-based, the rooted in this evaluation and critique and comparison. It makes sense that is going to be the leading force if we don't stop it, if we don't intentionally do something differently.
Yeah.
Because it's innate, right?
Yeah.
It's innate, it's environmental.
I mean, it looks like quite often that when we achieve something, we want to move the goalposts, and it doesn't stop. Is it something to do with the modern culture that rewards proactivity more than peace?
Certainly in the Western cultures, yes. And it probably started back, I don't know, Industrial Revolution, right? And it is also expanded as our communities, our contacts are expanded, meaning this is the first time ever in history that we are so connected across the globe. It was 50 years, it wasn't even just like 50 years ago that communities were the number one way that people met. They met their spouse, they met their their friends. It was all based on who was in their community. And now literally the world is your oyster, right? There's so much to access. It's like have you heard the studies where they did grocery store studies of, maybe we'll just call it jam or jelly on the store. And when there are more options on the shelf, more people as they're walking by will stop and spend more time there, but fewer people actually buy. They get overwhelmed with the options. So if there's only a handful of options, then they noticed that individuals would buy more frequently. And it's the same thing. Our brains are overwhelmed with all of the options, all of the access. And so, I mean, it just makes sense. Like, I guess what's coming to mind is what I thought not that long ago was, gosh, I must be broken. I can't focus. I can't, it's never enough. I'm exhausted all the time. And I think when we realize the other factors that are at play, it becomes a little bit more just manageable to start to get intentional.
Yeah, I like your example or the analogy with the stores, with the product shelves. Yeah, and quite often, I'm not sure if it's the same practice in the US, but here in Europe, you get used to a store. For example, you know exactly where is the product. You go there, and a couple of months later, they change everything. It's just to play with your head. So to let you spend more time looking for the product you want to buy or purchase, Yeah, it drives me mad. And then you ask, why are you doing this? Yeah.
Yeah. They
During
understand the psychology of it for sure.
Yeah, yeah. During our intro chat, you said something powerful, Nicole. You said, I had to redefine what success meant for me. What did success mean to you before? And what does it mean for you now?
On paper, success meant the title, the money. It meant being able to be seen, be visible, whether that's in my organization or in my community. And what I realized was that was all very me focused. But here's where it happened. Here's the shift. And I think this is important because I don't want anyone of your audience to walk away thinking that my version of success is the right success. Like part of this process was being able to stop the noise and be able to really listen to what was important to me. And for me, I had to do that in nature. I sat on the back deck. Kids and family were away doing their own thing, and I just spent a Saturday morning just sitting and looking at the woods and journaling. And there's something about writing that there's
Yeah,
science that says our brains like
right.
to
Yeah.
write. It slows us down, helps us to process. It's activating different parts of the brain. And so as I was doing that and I was really thinking about what does it look like, I couldn't get there until I asked, what if I imagined my 80-year-old self was sitting here? And what would they say to me? And I was thinking about it truly from the lens of, well, retirement's not that far, maybe 15 years. It feels like it's going to go in a blink. Like, what do I want that to look like? So that was really my journal prompt and my thinking and my exploration. And I got to the end of that process and I just had this like, why do I have to wait another 10, 15 years to have that? So this is where my and brain started to kick in. It's like, how can I have that and where I am now? What might that look like? And that's really what started this new concept of what does success look like. So that answers part of your question. The second part of your question was, what does it look like now?
Oh, yeah.
And I will share, it is a process. It is it is evolving. So years ago when I did this the first time, a lot of it was really around time freedom, financial freedom, spiritual freedom, right? It involved and health freedom, right? It involved those four components, and that's really where I anchored. And I found that over the years, I've started to really dive into each one of those a bit more. What does that really mean? What does it really look like? So for me, now my kids are in second and third grade. My husband travels quite a bit for work. And, part of my version of freedom is some of it's like, I'm not in survival mode. Like there's a sanity aspect, right? Like
Yeah.
there's an element of, who am I serving someone? Am I giving back to my community? Do I have the mental space when I'm with my kids? I am not, with them 12 hours a day. They go to school, they've got other activities. But when I do have time with them, am I present? Am I really with them? Am I making sure that I am making my family and my friends a priority versus just an afterthought? I mean, these are the things that I'm measuring myself against now. And it will change, right? Over time, I can see a version of success that involves, traveling. How could I travel and make money, right? Like there's a lot of ands in my head, right? How can I, spend time exploring, experimenting, and also find a way to, have that financial freedom. So there's a lot of just curiosity and a lot of experimentation And it does evolve probably every like 2 years now. I'll sit down on the back porch. I'll sit in nature, listen to the birds. Yes, I'm in my bird era right now,
Mhm.
and really really think about it, because it is. Maybe that's the thing that's really tricky for folks. It's personalized, and it does shift, it does change,
It
and so it
does.
takes
Yeah.
that intentionality, that evolution.
I must say, when the kids they get older, it becomes much more easier. The only
Does it, Sid?
Yeah,
Does it?
it does. I mean, put it this way, it becomes easier to plan because when
Mm,
they're small, there is so much logistic around, so much
yes.
stuff for folks out there and listeners, put it this way, young adults trying to do their very best to achieve. If you have a family and small kids, pay attention because whatever time you waste not spending it with the kids, you're gonna regret that big time. Yeah. I've been there. I've done it. And going back to yeah, when they grow, I mean, it become much more easy. Their problem will grow with them. So we'll put it this way, it's guarantee. But it's in terms of planning, either you're working or from a career point. So it's much easier. But Nicole, why do people postpone until retirement, promotion, or financial milestone? Which I have to say, and this is based on my experience when I was taking my MBA, I was the student that was not liked by the teachers because when you study business administration, one core or one word or one sentence that keep coming up all the time, scalability. You have to scale, you have to scale. And I keep
Mhm.
asking them, until when? Where's the limit? And there is no answer to that question. You know? So I push them or I challenge them in terms of when it has to stop. At some point, it has to stop. They say, not really. If you want to be successful, you keep scaling. So yeah.
It- yeah, what you're saying is really resonating quite a bit, because that has been the goal. A lot of the companies that I work with, the work that I do is primarily with organizations that are scaling, that are growing. And one of the things that we often talk about is going back to this success factor, is really creating space for them to pause and talk about, what does that success look like? What is 5 years? You've scaled, you've done the things you said you want to do. What does it look like? And get really clear, visualize it. What does it look like on a day-to-day basis? What are you hearing in the hallways? What are your customers telling you? And and then giving permission that when you're in these stages, to be able to say, like, it's okay to kind of stay right here. And I've seen some leaders do that, and they get flack both ways, whether they're trying to scale or whether they're trying to keep it status quo. But at the end of the day, there's this element of, are you true to your values? Are you being intentional about culture? And that's going to answer the question of how far you scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that's ambiguous, but
But
it's a really good point that you were making.
and based on what you said earlier, Nicole, can we really deeply be ambitious while remaining emotionally healthy and grounded? Or is just an idea?
100%. No, 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 100%. Yes. With some caveats.
Right.
I am still very much an ambitious person. I am a builder at my core. I love to design and create, to collaborate. And I'm not going to stop anytime, because that's innate in me. That's the gift I have to give others. It's how I can serve others. And I can do that with boundaries, with intentionality. I can create space for the things that I need to do, to keep my strategic edge. That that, well, I have a sidebar I'll come back to, but all of those things, you'll hear me say this a lot. The intentionality piece is really, really the differentiator. I do think you can have all of it at the same time. It's just, well, I think you can have it all. Sometimes they're not all at the same time, and that's okay. But with some intentionality, I think being ambitious is not a character flaw. That is a beautiful gift that someone's been given when they have that ambition. So that's actually where I felt like, I remember one day I was sitting with my HR rep. I was pregnant with my first kid and I was getting ready to go out on maternity leave. And I'm embarrassed to say it now, but I was literally tearing up because I was so frustrated and I felt like I had to choose between this, being a parent and then getting promoted.
Right.
And when we think that way, when it's either black or white, then yeah, we're going to get stuck there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as we expand, and it took a while for me to get there to realize that, but it's
Yeah.
it can happen both.
Yeah, that's why we are quite fortunate here in Sweden, and quite often I think in the entire Scandinavia, where regulations are quite strict when it comes from employer standpoint. If someone wants to go on maternity leave, and that's a minimum 12 months, if I'm not mistaken, fully paid, there is absolutely no issue with guaranteed that they will have their jobs if they want to come back. 95%, they all come back and they carry on from where they left it. So, yeah.
And that's both parents, right?
For the dads, they are allowed to take 3 months, a mandatory 3 months. They like it or they don't. They have to take 3 months by law. If they want to extend for some family, personal reason, they can. Subject, they have the right excuse or justifications. And for the mom, she has a guaranteed 12 months. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's fantastic.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago when I was advocating for the organization that I was in to shift it from maternity leave to parental leave because the dads were not, or folks that were adopting or had other situations, like they didn't have the same benefits. So it's really up to the companies in the US to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And there's definitely not a lot of regulation that helps them.
I mean, this is one of the things, because you ask yourself, why do we have to pay so much tax, 25% plus? It's for these things, beside of the medical care, which is free, plus education, it's free. So yeah, I must say it's not luck. We are fortunate to have those. Yeah.
And I imagine, not to derail us, but just to ask a little bit more on that. Like I've heard the Scandinavian countries also have the highest happiness ratings, and I feel like a lot of the things that myself and my colleagues in my circles have had to really fight for seem like they're a bit more innate in the Scandinavian countries in terms of finding that peace and being with family. Like it's not, just, you have a leg up. That's from what I would understand.
Yeah. Finland was ranked, I think, for the past 5 years or 6 years, if I'm not mistaken, back to back, the number one, the top nation when it comes to happiness. Sweden, third, fourth, Norway is there, Denmark as well, Iceland, because of the safety net within the support, schooling, maternity leave, and medical, which makes a huge difference, And then you learn within time where, I mean, look, is it the best system? We can talk about this for days, Does it stretch the country resources? Yes and no. Depend on, But do people sometimes try to cheat the system? I think yes, because you are allowed here. If you have a cold, or if you cough or you have a throat pain and things like that, you just call your employer and say, "Hey, I have a cold." You don't have even to present some kind of medical certificate, or you go to a doctor to give you an exoneration for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. You just call your boss and say, "Hey, I don't feel good. I'm sick. Therefore, I'm either working from home, and then it's okay. Or if the kids are sick, so your obligation is to care for them and to stay with the kids. Therefore, your employer can give you, it's so we have these facilities and stuff like that that make a huge difference, Nicole. This is why the Scandinavian countries, they are always within the top five when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
public satisfaction. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let,
Yeah, makes sense.
let's shift gear and talk about burnout, which is everywhere right now. Yet many people still I think they misunderstand what's burnout it's all about. What's actually happening emotionally and psychologically beneath burnout, Nicole.
I tend to agree. I mean, being in the HR people culture space, this was a huge topic. And especially after COVID, it did nothing but increase. Um, and I had this sense, like, not that I was not empathetic, but I would hear people say, I'm burnt out or that person's burnt out. And I had this sense inside of me, like there's something else. And then the more and more that term burnout got used, I could see it being weaponized. I could also see people just didn't have the words to really describe what was going on. But because burnout was a term that was becoming more, talked about, which is great that people were sharing, it became kind of the default. So I got really intrigued by this term burnout and did some digging. I talked to a bunch of people. I did some reading. And I think what really shifted for me was when I realized that burnout is most of the time a term that says, I'm not aligned with my values, meaning I'm doing work that somewhere is disconnected with who I am at my core. And maybe because I had an experience similar where I had a great company, had a great job, loved the people that I worked with. My team was phenomenal, and I was feeling it. And I was like, what is that? What is going on? And at the core of it, it really was this sense of just disconnect from my values and the things that I was innately where my strengths were. And once I realized that, and I discovered fascinating assessment, the purpose factor, I loved it so much. I ended up getting certified in it because what it really taught me was this sense of when you have that feeling of I'm drained often, I'm overwhelmed, I'm exhausted. I mean, all of those are different words for saying burnout. When we get to the root of the values, the purpose, where does fulfillment come from for me as an individual? Then it doesn't matter what job I'm in. I can find that fulfillment anywhere. And sometimes that does result in some, hey, I think there's maybe a different path for me, and that's great too. But yeah, I what I've come to realize is that it's an alignment issue.
Yeah, yeah. And how much is burnout connected to identity and to validation, in your opinion?
How much is tied to identity? I'll have to think about this one a little bit more. What's coming to mind right now is that we've heard of like the busy culture, right? People are proud, at least in the United States. I hear this a lot. They're proud to say, and they don't call it proud, but they're proud to say, I'm busy. I don't have time. My calendar is booked, And when I first started as a manager, Sid, I'll be really honest here. I was a first time manager, and my version of success, like when I got my first meetings on the calendar, I was like, oh, I must be there. I've arrived because I'm important. I'm in the meeting rooms. And so meetings became a version of what I thought was
Yes.
success. And
Yeah.
then, of course, fast forward back to back meetings, and you start to realize the toll that takes. But yeah, I mean, sorry, I went on a tangent, but it's really, it's just a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting you're talking about meetings. We do some consultancy for companies and organizations, and the first thing we look at when we do our SWOT analysis, it's the percentage of meeting that organization do a week, a month, a year. You know, that's one
Mm.
of. It's fascinating that because when we analyze the length of the meeting numbers and the time it takes, and then we ask them, okay, uh, if you compare that to your actions or proactivity or the things that you solve through the meeting, because you get everyone gathered around table to discuss problem issues, and therefore you come up with solutions. So it's interesting, and I fully agree with you. Maybe it's a mindset. Yes, my calendar is chock-a-block, is full. I'm in meetings. I'm doing this and that, and but then we go back to burnout, and we were talking earlier about the happiest countries here in Scandinavia. We have the trend here in Scandinavia, Nicole, and you're gonna be surprised. You're gonna be really surprised. We have a trend which call hit the wall. So we don't talk about burnout, but we talk that a person, he or she, hit the wall, meaning it's
Mm.
the end of physical, emotional, and they really need to. And again, the companies, the organization you work for, they have to support the person. Therapy, medications, and it's all covered by the organization. But then we see when you think about it, you say, okay, we are the top 5, 10 happiest countries in the world. And then you look on the other side, the when it comes to antidepressant, I think United States is number one, and I guess Sweden is the number two or three, somewhere,
Oh, really?
somewhere in there.
Interesting.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. You can see the percentage of countries, the highest percentage where they take or prescribe antidepressant is here in Scandinavia. So, and then you ask yourself, why is like that? Is it the weather maybe because of winter time? It's too cold, the days are shorter, it's dark, or is it more to do the way the youngsters here are raised in terms of trying to build this kind of resilience, this kind of grit, and it's becoming difficult year after year because we try to cocoon, we try to, how I say, to shield the kids, the little ones, from everything basically, and then the consequence or the impact, which quite often is negative. I hear the dog barking. I hope mine will not, but we love dogs on the show, so yeah. So it's interesting when we talk about burnout. And in sport, burnout is crystal clear. It's black and white. Burnout when an athlete, he or she, they reach this stage where maybe quite often because of long-term injuries, and then they keep getting injured quite often, and therefore it shamble completely their program, and they don't reach their target. And when you work very hard, and when I say very hard, 42 to 48 hours a week training just to be on the peak, and there is no guarantee, you have no control on the outcome, meaning you have no control on the result, that you will cross the finishing line first, or you're going to be on the podium, and so on and so forth. And when you keep trying on and on and on, and there is no result, then it's a burnout. Mainly, you hit the wall. You know,
Mm.
we've seen it many times at high level in sport, and quite often, if the athletes are well surrounded with coaches, medical staff, psychologists, and therapists, and things like that, they will go through it. But then, high achievers like CEOs, for example, where there is this notion, Nicole, that you need to be available 24/7.
Yeah, I'm just really intrigued by the hit the wall concept, and I'm curious, is there a sense that once you've hit the wall that that you can recover, or is it I've hit the wall, I'm done, like it's going to be a month before I can kind of get back in the game?
When I was a coach, we try to give as much ammunition. Not sure when I say ammunition, we try to push the limit during the training session, or we put them in a situation. It's like you are in the navy or in the military and things like when you simulate a race or a combat. Quite often you push the limit, and when you do that, you are testing their resilience. And then you go through selection process if you want, and the one that are selected, they are the best. We call them the elite, you know, not only because of what they can achieve physically, but it's the mental resilience. And then when you reach that level, you say, okay, he or she are the top. Then we look for an extra. What is the extra? Meaning it doesn't matter what happened, you will never pull the plug. You will not give up, put it this way, unless you're injured, you know. And the teams that excel all the time on a pitch could be football team, could be soccer team, could be basketball, could be volleyball, anything, track and field, is those athletes, Nicole, that they have something inner extra that other athletes they don't have, looking always for that extra inch, extra, and then when you dig and you try to find out where it is, it's the way they grew up. Quite often, the one that comes from a poor background, they are the one that have the top mental resilience or grit, put it this way. Like for them, giving up, it's not an option. And the satisfaction, the reward, and the relief is when they believe on themselves, because we use quite this sentence, you need to believe on yourself. And quite often those guys, either they have a deep spiritual belief or faith, put it this way, you know, where at some point they don't feel pain. Quite often it's a mental one, you know, and they have that extra thing. So here, hitting the wall, it's and when I say hitting the wall, even in the marriages, people they pull the plug. Before you know it, they're married for 2, 3, 4 years, and they found out it's too much to deal with the partners, and they pull the plug. And we see it more in in the more developed countries than anything else. Is it because we have more choices? Because we are more distracted? We don't have time to communicate properly without having a smartphone on one hand and talking to your spouse on the, or you go to a restaurant or just trying to have a normal conversation or an argument, put it this way, an argument is healthy. And quite often here people they're scared of argument. They don't like confrontation for whatever reason. So yeah, it's hitting the wall. It's common because they lack this mental resilience. They lack grit. They don't like confrontation, which I believe in US it's normal. You talk, you argue, you make your point forward, and then you agree or disagree. But quite often it's more professional than personal. Here, we try to mix both, Nicole. Yeah. And if you are a boss or a leader leading a team, you need really to be careful where you step in, because you cannot have this conversation in terms of, hey, keep your emotions outside, or I hear you, I'm empathetic, I can listen to your personal stories, but please don't make them kind of recurring every day, you know. So yeah, yeah, my Swedish friends, please don't get mad at me. We are so
Oh,
yeah.
that is fascinating. What's coming up for me as you're sharing this is there's a skill that's backed by science called naming. And what's coming up for me is in organizations when we can name what's happened, we can verbalize. It can just be a word. Like we get irritated with someone or someone triggers us, or there's something where you're stuck. Anytime that's happening, when we can just simply name it in the moment, and whether it's some sort of cultural term that's normalized, like hitting the wall, or it's just frustrated, annoyed,
Yeah.
right? When we can start naming what we're actually experiencing, the brain starts to lower the experience, lower the negative experience, so that it doesn't bother us the same. So there's this concept of naming it, and then there's also the other piece that's coming up for me is this: how might we normalize saying something like, "I'm at capacity," like before you get to that place of burnout or hitting the wall, or you know, that feeling of just kind of giving up. How can we normalize say no is a full sentence, and I'm at capacity? And that could be physical capacity on the calendar, it could be mental capacity, because we're all dealing with stuff. We're not just, in the meeting, we're not just thinking about what's going on in the meeting. We're filtering through our experiences, the milk that got spilled in the morning, the fight to go to bed the night before that left you exhausted, right? It's all of that stuff we're carrying with us. And so when we can start to normalize that phrase, "I'm at capacity," and people really noticing and are self-aware when it's starting to happen, then we won't get to these extreme burnouts, these extreme kind of experiences.
Yeah. One thing we learn in sport, when we start a session, we do a briefing, and a good coach or a good leader try to sense and read the room by asking personal questions about the day or the week. How was it? Just to get a sense about where is everyone, mentally. Are there some issues at home, or is everyone okay? Is your pet okay? Based on that, then the coach or the leader will set the goals for the day or for the week, which I think is good. One thing it's important talking about burnout, because the minute we identify burnout in a corporate world or even in the sports business, so we plan for the recovery, an action plan, what we do, and then the recovery, and we need to make sure that recovery is good or comprehensive for the sake of getting the person on a top physical and mental ability to perform again or to do the work, and not to fall again into another burnout.
Can I just go back to something you said about planning for the recovery? Because I think that right there is incredibly, incredibly important. When we think about resilient organizations, a lot of the teams that I talk to, when I'll put on the wall and I'll say, rate where you are on these different elements of a healthy team, and resilience is one of them. A lot of times they will overscore themselves on resilience because there's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of they're navigating a lot of change. And so they interpret that as, well, we must be resilient because we're navigating a lot of change.
Right.
But truly resilient organizations and teams are doing what you just said, which is planning for the recovery. And they're planning for, what are we going to need to do if we're going to have these high achieving, high performing individuals. We can't just assume everyone's going to just keep performing. We have to build in time for that recovery. And I noticed it in a team of mine a few years ago, and I kept hearing from some of my top performers, I'm just burnt out. I'm feeling, really, just I can't keep up. And we took a step back, and when we started to just really unpack that, what we were finding was that we had no built-in time for recovery. They were just going from thing to thing to thing, project to project. And I, as a leader, I was leading initiative after initiative. We had to create space in our strategic plan to be able to have cycles of downtime and intentionally say, we're pausing here. We're going to step back. We're going to reflect before we go into the next cycle of initiatives or corporate activities. And eventually we were able to get company to do that as well and build that into their strategic process. But that's a huge mindset shift and a huge culture shift, and such an important one
Indeed, indeed.
to build that recovery.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's talk about gender and leadership. When a man is assertive, he's often perceived as confident or strong. When a woman leads with the same intensity, she may be labeled difficult, emotional, or not yet ready. Why, Nicole, does that double standard persist today?
I mean, why does it exist? All right, there's years, decades, centuries of reinforcing that. What does reinforcing the idea of what leadership looks like, and I think we're at a really beautiful time right now where more women are realizing that they can be strong leaders, they can be bold leaders, and it doesn't have to look the way that it does, with men, right? Like we can, and I'm not speaking, I mean, just put this out there. Like, I'm not speaking for everyone. Everyone is unique. There is not a male way to lead and a female way to lead. I've seen a lot of variations on both sides. So what I'm sharing is my experience as a female leader and working a lot with male dominated spaces and clients. So I just want to put that caveat out there. But I think it persists because it's going to require men to be able to like offer another way to lead. I was told at one point years ago by my manager, I needed to build confidence. And I said, great. How do I do that? Like, what is that? What are you talking? Like, what does it show up? What are the behaviors? He couldn't tell me, Sid. He sent me off to a class. It was great. I did the training class. It was helpful, but I still couldn't answer that question. So there's an element of we have to be able to describe the behaviors that we're looking for. And we need to be able to allow other different kinds of leadership and personalities to be able to lead. And really what we should be looking at are what are the outcomes?
Yeah.
Right? Are we achieving the goals? Is the team in a good place? Is it healthy? The organization, the team, the clients. So oftentimes I think people are reacting with their own biases, which is natural. That's how we're built. And not enough of us are questioning, bringing in more curiosity to be able to say, what other ways might we lead? Or why am I experiencing this person who, seems to really aggressive, right? What about me? What bias am I bringing to that? And just a little bit of curiosity would go a long way.
But based on your experience, Nicole, let me ask you this. Why, and I've seen it, and I ask that question quite often, to colleague women. Why women in leadership or in executive role, when you are in a room, there is this pressure or they feel pressure to constantly prove they belong in the room. Why that mindset?
Yeah. And people of color feel it 10 times worse too. Like it is, when it comes down to it, our culture says that leadership looks a certain way, it sounds a certain way, and until we challenge that collectively, not just women, but also men in the roles, challenge what could it look like, then things aren't real. They're slowly going to change, but it's not going to be a massive shift. It's also the same thing, Sid, on looks. When I was a first consultant, and I was consulting in a government organization that was primarily male dominated, old white men dominated, and the advice that I got, because I had to get up in front of the room and present in front of these executives. The advice that I got was well intended, but it was essentially put on a skirt, put on the heels, pull your hair back, like look the part so that they'll pay attention. And I did that. I did the whole fake it till you make it thing. It was fine. But now looking back, I'm like, that was really shit advice. Excuse my
It
language. Like
is.
that
No,
was
it is. It's
it was
out of line.
it was
Yeah.
perpetuating. It was
Yeah.
perpetuating. Um, and so at the end of the day, I had to get to a place where I was confident with I knew what I knew what I didn't know, and I would engage in questions. I would engage in those bring that curiosity. I didn't try to just be the smartest one in the room. I didn't try to be the loudest one in the room. You know, I used what was innate for me, which was I'm a listener first. I notice, I connect dots, and then when I would speak, people were like, "Oh, you've got something to say." And it took a little bit of time, but I go back to that client now. I don't feel that at all. I certainly notice when I'm the only woman in the room, but I don't let their bias and their judgment of what I can do get in my way. And unfortunately, I benefited because my bosses at the time were incredibly supportive. They really listened to my perspectives as a female and my concerns. And there were a couple of situations that were really untenable and very sketchy. And they listened to me and they looked out for me. Like we all started looking out for each other. And I think we just need more of that, more care and more curiosity. I mean, I can't change their perspectives. They'd been in, they'd had 50, 60 years of doing what they do best. So I'm not going to change their mind, but I can, for myself, I can stop looking to them for validation. And I think that was really the shift. I also had to be surrounded by other women, and we would do these happy hours and we would talk about. I remember one time in particular, we started surfacing some of our shared experiences in rooms with some of the men that were inappropriate, things that were said. And I mean, I certainly didn't feel it to the extent that many of the women there, but as we were talking about it, as we were surfacing it, now we're building more awareness. We're we're sharing our experiences so we can support each other. And then we would bring in other men into our community that were advocates, that were questioning and were listening and trying to do the best that they could to create a space that was safe for women to be able to speak up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I've seen as when I talk to many women out there about if they have to choose as a leader or a manager, would they pick a woman or a man, especially here in Scandinavia? And you would be surprised. Then the majority of the answers is they all want to be led by a man. And I ask, okay, why? And at my surprise is depend on the industry that they prefer to have a man leader because how I say, the process is really straightforward when it comes to evaluation, when it comes to opportunities, when it comes to the job itself. And when I say, okay, hang on, what's the difference being led by a woman leader or a manager? And they said, there is so much conflict and so much, how I say,
Drama?
drama. Yes, but no, there is a nice word in Swedish. Kind of electric. I'm trying to find the right one. Yeah, drama, absolutely. And I said, but why? He said, yeah, because of this jealousy, and I found it like, wow, we don't have that between dudes, you know. So yeah, it's really interesting. But during your career, Nicole, have you experienced that or have you felt you are evaluated differently?
So I've been really fortunate to be able to work in environments where felt like an equal.
Wow.
So I don't have that experience. I have intentionally sought out managers and leaders that have created that space. So I'm not it's not just a thing that's happening to me. I'm intentionally seeking it out. So there's that. I will say though, there are times when I remember one experience in particular where I raised my voice about something that just felt like, why are we perpetuating like a bro culture, right? The company was, 65% women, and there was something that happened. I honestly don't even remember what it is now, but I remember calling it out, and I felt like, oof, I really shouldn't call this out. And I got on the phone with two of the senior leaders in the organization, and I mean, interestingly, they were in the office, and I was working from home that day. It was my day to work from home, and they got on the Zoom on the same screen. So it literally felt like us versus them. It was a very bizarre, and they were trying so hard to do the right thing and like create space for the conversation, but man, did they miss the mark. But so there's moments of that where I've had to balance like what's the right thing to do right now. And sometimes it means calling out when I feel like there's an injustice that's been done. And also I've had the relationship first. So I built the relationship with those coworkers to be able to have a space where I could say, let's talk about this. Sure, it would be so much easier to just sweep it under the rug and pretend it doesn't matter. But the more we do that, the more our own authentic voices and ideas, it gets stifled.
Yeah.
Because you better believe if I had held that in the next meeting with those people, I wouldn't have voiced my creative idea or my innovative idea. And that is not going to serve the company. It's going to serve the company if we do have those safe spaces where we can talk about what's bothering us, get it out in the air, and then move on. And I don't know that that's a male female thing. Like I'm a very, when I get in like go mode, I am just like,
Go,
like
go,
what you
go.
talked about,
Yeah.
the experience with men. I'm like, let's go, let's do the thing and go. And also, and I'm not saying this is a male or female thing, but I also lead with empathy. I lead with curiosity. I've had to take those traits that were innate in me growing up. I buried in my first 10 years of work because I was trying to be like all the dudes, and be like all the guys. And then I had to, I think my second decade in the professional space was really unpacking that, what I had tried to put bricks around. Because there is this balance. Yes, we can get stuff done, and we can care about how the other person on the team is doing, because we know that if everyone is coming with their full self and they're feeling safe to be able to share their concerns and have healthy conflict, then everyone benefits.
Right. You mentioned preferring the term work-life integration over work-life balance. What's the difference?
Yeah. Well, when that term work-life balance was becoming really popular, there was a visual that kept coming to mind of the scales, and work was over here and life was over here. And it was about kind of balancing those two separate things. And in reality, that's not really how it works. Like, I show up at the office, I'm single parenting it because my husband's traveling. I've got, really hard morning with the kids, getting them off to school. Why the shoes are so hard to put on, I will never know, Sid. Like, why is this a problem? Just put the shoes on. Anyway, I come to the office with that. I'm frazzled. My capacity meter is starting to like buzz a little bit. And that shows up in my first meeting. So this concept of they're two separate and you kind of pick one and you can kind of balance them didn't really work for me. And so I'd heard somebody talk about this concept of work-life integration, where we're really balancing. I'll just use the example of meetings since that's what we were talking about. We're using this example of I'm sitting in a meeting. My brain is going, a mile a minute, and I'm not just processing what's in the meeting. I'm processing, what are we going to do with this after? How am I going to achieve this when I have baseball practice, tomorrow night? And I've got back-to-back meetings. I'm thinking about where my body brought me in from the chaos from the morning. Like it is all integrated together. So we really can't separate it,
Yeah.
in my mind.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Social media and corporate culture often reward polished appearances. I think we spoke about it earlier. Do you think people today are exhausted in part because they're constantly performing the best version of themselves?
I think they're exhausted because they're not being authentic.
True.
And maybe that's the same thing as what you're getting
absolutely.
at. What's interesting with AI, I just heard recently this shift that's happening, whereas in the past, not that long ago, when someone was really polished with a deliverable or a presentation, there was a video, right? There was a sense of they must be, higher performing because it is polished. That was the top tier. And now with AI, that's kind of polishing everything really easily and creating a bunch of content that is, on the surface polished, but it's losing authenticity. It's losing, the essence of individuals. We're starting to see a massive shift in downward trend in trust. Maybe you've heard the term, like this trust epidemic that we're in right now, and it's just getting worse. So I don't know if I answered your question.
I think you did. You did. We've been talking about kids. We've been talking about the issues we have with the little ones in the morning, getting them ready, not trying to figure out why the shoes they don't fit, or in my case was mainly the mixed up the socks. We had, I think we still have the socks syndrome.
I don't know where the socks go. I don't understand
especially
it.
you get them out from the washing machine into the dryer and say, something is wrong here. Where is what belongs to what, and it doesn't matter how much you brief, you explain the kids, please, it's we still have the socks syndrome. Now, talking about leadership, Nicole, and based on our experiences and folks out there, how has parenthood shaped your understanding of leadership and success?
Oh, it shifted really everything. It shifted my own concept of myself, the way my mindset. It also shifted what I was able to do. I mean, the things that I did in the beginning, just picking up extra time, nights and weekends, being online, available all the time, they just weren't options anymore. So it really created an opportunity for creativity and a moment of, if I operated differently, if I created different systems, how can I get creative here when time is of the essence, right? Like time is a commodity now, so it shifted so many things. It also shifted. I knew that I wanted to still get promoted. I still wanted to advance, and I couldn't do it the same way as before. So, and I'll be honest, it just humbled me. I mean, being a parent just is the single most humbling experience.
It's a blessing. It's a blessing.
I learned how to receive feedback as a parent differently. I was walking with my kids, if I can tell this story. I was walking in the tile store. We were getting ready to refinish a bathroom, and we've got the kids, and my husband's up there with my younger one, and my older one must have been 6 at this time, and he's walking beside me, and he is adamant that he is upset with me. He does not
Oh,
like me. I am not a good mom, right? Like, this is the first time this really happened. And I had this moment of like, okay, I can react, or what else can I do? And
right.
I started to realize, like, of course he's frustrated. All he wants to do is go play on that pile of
Yes.
tile
Yeah.
because that is way more fun.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
and so I started gathering data about the situation versus reacting to it. And I just grabbed his hand and I said, "Thank you for the feedback." And we kept walking. And he looked up at me like shocked. And he like eventually kind of caught up with me and squeezed my hand tighter, and then we could have a conversation. And I'll tell you, I learned more about how to give and receive feedback at work from that situation
Right.
than any training that I could have taken.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Any advice to young women trying to balance, in one hand, the ambition at work and be present at home with the kids and the family?
How much time do we have? Just
Go
kidding.
ahead.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, really what it comes down to, and I'll tell you, I spent a lot of time with a coach that specialized in working with ambitious working moms. Rebecca Olson was fantastic. She was totally changed things for me. And, one of the things that she said often was, or I'll say one of the things she challenged me to do is really think about how being a parent was not a like baggage that weighed me down at the office. Instead, it made me a better leader. And when I started to see things differently from that lens and using it as a strength, things really started to get easier. And this is where I would say a lot of the practices, my mom wrote a book a couple of years ago called Mindfully Successful.
Which we're going
And
to talk
I'll,
about shortly.
okay, great. Yeah, that's awesome. And I'll say a lot of the practices, I had the benefit of hearing her wisdom over the years. And I know on our coaching calls in the morning when I was driving to work, we call them our commute coaching and catch ups. I think those practices helped tremendously. And I would highly encourage anyone that's in that same space to be able and I guess this is advice for anyone, I would say, not just for moms, but to be able to create space for intentionality, for intentionally listening to your body, to your mind, being clear about what does success look like for you. And so often we're told that if we're not a stay-at-home mom, then we're not successful. And stay-at-home moms are told, hey, I'm not working in the workforce, so I'm less than. Like there's all this like back and forth and what's better, and there's really not one right,
Or
wrong
wrong.
answer. I mean, the research shows it doesn't really matter how much time you spend with your kids. It's whether it's quality time.
Right. Yeah.
And so once we start to think about that and we start to remember, what's really important, then some of the other things start to work itself out.
What kind of example do you hope your kids see in the way you approach work and life?
I hope they see the curiosity and the vulnerability of just saying when things don't work, or saying when we're, my husband and I are processing something. Like, we don't have it all together.
Right.
And I think that's something maybe these newer generations are starting to get right, is this sense of just being more comfortable kind of verbalizing what they're feeling on the inside or what they're thinking. Is I think that helps children more than anything else, or one of the things that will help them. But laughter, curiosity, laughter meaning finding joy in situations that maybe aren't always happy, but still finding the joy in there, curiosity, and then kindness. there's so much research that talks about the fundamental impact that kindness has, and that plays out at home, that plays out at the office, and those are really the fundamental building blocks of everything from
Right.
a leadership perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Has motherhood changed your understanding of purpose?
What I understand about purpose is really independent of the roles that I play: boss, mom, wife. What I've really come to terms with over the past couple of years, and I'll say that the assessment that I mentioned, the purpose factor, really helped me to be able to see this, is that purpose and fulfillment can happen no matter what role you have. And when we get so tied to our sense of purpose, tied to someone else, to our kids, to our spouse, to our communities, right? That sense of it starts to get a little bit skewed, and we start to move towards more of that external validation, or thinking that I'm not happy in this particular moment, so something must be wrong. I must change my job. I must, you know, change my company, as an example. So again, that's really my not everyone follows that definition of purpose, but that's where I land with purpose and fulfillment.
Right. Let's talk about the book your mother wrote, Mindfully Successful. Nicole, what was it like collaborating with your mother on something so personal and meaningful to you?
Oh, oh, so funny, that question. I mean, on the surface, right in the beginning, when she wrote the book, and it took her many years of encouragement. Like she's had this thing written in her head for a while,
Right.
and really needed some encouragement. So one, I was just really proud of her for just going ahead and doing the thing, the hard thing. And when I noticed that, like, the books are great, and there's so much of what she says that takes work to kind of to be able to practice it, to understand how it feels, to really experience it. And that's where I pitched to her that she create a workbook. And she said, "Great, let's do it together." And I said, no, but this is for you. This is my idea for you to go and do the thing. And she's like, no. This is your vision. And I had a very clear vision of wanting this workbook to be very experiential, not just something that, you're like filling in the blanks. And so that set us out on the journey. It took us 9 months, which the irony of the length of time it takes to birth a baby and this book were the same. The experience was pretty similar in the sense that in the beginning, there was a lot of like the honeymoon phase and the planning and what was it going to look like. And then as it started to take shape, there were a lot of frustrations. There were some things surfaced for us that, it was, I'm grateful it was her, because we had years of relationship built up that we could just be honest with each other. We could take a break when we needed to.
Right.
And our skills are very different. And so we balanced each other out really well. She says that, if it had been up to her, we would have been done with an iteration that was about, 6 months in. And I really paused us and said, no, we need to bring in a group of people to experience it and give us feedback. And so we did a focus group, and had people go through it and give us feedback after each module. And it totally changed what it ended up, the final product. And still to this day, she was like, I was so annoyed. Like I needed to, like, we just needed to be done. Like she's the, very strong D, if you're familiar with DISC, and like check box, let's get things done. And I was like, no, let's slow down. And so she says now that, she agrees with the process, but at the time she was like, why do we need to do this? So we had a lot of those moments. It was
Normal. Yeah.
it was,
Yeah.
and then we took a little break after we launched it.
Right.
We were like, no more meetings for a little while. Let's just have a little space. Let's talk about the grandkids only.
Yeah. What's the core message of the book itself, the Mindfully Successful?
Yeah, a lot of it is coming from the concepts that we have talked about, where we have this version of success, and a lot of it is comes from some early experience in our lives, and then we continue to operate as if that's the version of success, and then we end up, and what she found with many of her clients, and then her research in psychology and neuroscience, and even her IT background, and like yoga instructor background, like all of it really merges together. And so it's just a fascinating lens from all of those different perspectives. So she tells her story, and then she also tells some of the stories of clients. So it's very practical. It's not a theory based. There's certainly a lot of science and research that's baked in. And it's a very easy to read, very personal story.
The editing process, was it easy or difficult? Did you have to chop so many stories or chapters or pages?
Oh yeah, we cut an entire module after the focus group. Yeah. They were like, we don't need all this beginning stuff. Like, just get to it. So we did. We got to it.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, we had a fantastic designer help us, Tracy Siri. She was incredibly collaborative with us. This was a newer experience for her. She was an incredible designer, but was kind of newer in designing this kind of workbook. And so it was very collaborative. It was extremely, we were kind of building it as we were going, meaning like if I had to do it again, I would know exactly here's the plan, here's the process. But we were really trying to figure that out together since it was our first time. But yeah, it was incredibly iterative, and there were many pages that we ended up cutting or redesigning through the process.
Yeah. Where can listeners find the book and the workbook?
Yeah, right now Amazon is the best place to find it, and you can find that on my website audacialeadership.com or on margotboster.com.
You're listening to the Pre-Zero Sports Talk. For more conversations on sports leadership, faith, performance, and innovation from Sweden to the world, visit prezerosportstalk.com. I'm afraid it's time for our lightning round. So,
all right, let's do it.
Coffee, tea, or something else?
Oh, both.
Okay.
I'm drinking coffee right now. It is quite cold, but I am trying to switch to tea, so both.
Right. Morning person or a night owl?
Morning, 100%.
Because of the kids?
No? Yes, and I just always, I'm just a better thinker in the morning. It got earlier because of the kids, but right. I kind of shut off around 9:30. My brain just stops.
One thing that instantly brings you peace.
Okay, I'm not going to go into the story. There is a story on this, but birds. The sound of birds.
Wow, nice. Favorite place you've ever visited?
There's favorites because of who I'm with. So I don't have a good answer for that, but the one that's coming to mind is New Zealand. I went to New Zealand on a sabbatical for 2.5 months with my sister, and that was just incredible.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And the people are nice. The Kiwis are
incredible.
The fish is good, food is good, and there is so much to do. Yeah. What's harder, Nicole? Leading others or leading yourself?
I would say leading self.
One habit that changed your life?
Journaling.
And running a family, and it gets really hectic. What's the best way to unwind after, let's say, a long week or a long day?
We have a routine every Friday where it's pizza and movie night.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with the movie or the pizza, but it's the whole family is together. We're snuggling on the couch. It's making popcorn together. It's just the togetherness piece.
Yeah. Music or silence while driving?
Silence.
I need to learn to do that.
Years ago, I got onto my dad. I must have been in college, and he was driving without music, and I was like, "How do you do that? You're in the car all the time." And he was like, "I just need the silence." And I was like, ugh, judgment under my breath, right? And now I'm like, "Oh, I get it. It's the only time I have to just be in my head and just like calm." So yeah, I usually don't
Yeah,
have music
I need
on.
to train myself to do it. It's the minute I start the car, music has to be there or something else, listening to a podcast or, yeah. So
Yeah.
for me, it's weird to drive and it's quiet. So
Mm. Hmm.
if you had to have a dinner with a historical figure, who would it be and why?
I think Nelson Mandela. I'm really fascinated by his experiences, the tumultuous life that he had, and the curiosity that he was able to bring to situations and be able to negotiate and bring people together. I would love to pick his brain.
Best advice you've ever received?
Just breathe.
Worst career
But
advice you ever gotten?
the worst advice? Fake it till you make it.
Yes, I agree with you, 100%. Yeah. Nicole, what makes you hopeful?
Well, my kids, to see the opportunity in them and the hope and the laughter, that gives me hope. And then I will say, watching nature take over a space that, when it's left unsettled, for whatever reason, that gives me a lot of hope too. It's just this reminder that nothing's permanent, that, it's ever evolving.
Kids is a blessing, and nature, 100%, it has this healing divine power. It's
Hmm.
100%. There is nothing better than just go out there 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, walk there in nature. You will recharge the batteries, guarantee. No discussion.
Hmm. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
talking about the kids, Nicole, if your children listening to this episode, let's say 5, 10 years from now, what's one message you want them to remember?
Stay curious. Just continue to explore, experiment, and stay curious.
Nicole Anderson, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a pleasure having you on the show.
This has been a great conversation. You've got some really great questions.
How can folks reach out to you? What's the best way?
My website, audacialeadership.com, or on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people on LinkedIn and having open conversations.
Nicole, thank you once again for such an honest and thoughtful conversation. I leave our listeners with a few words from Thomas Merton. People may spend their whole lives climbing the ladder of success only to find, once they reach the top, that the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. And I think that's really what we discussed today with Nicole was all about. Not rejection ambition, but making sure the life we build is actually aligned with who we are. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great quote.
We want to thank you for joining our show. If you enjoyed this episode, we have more for you. You can now watch the entire episode on our YouTube and Spotify channels. While you're here, subscribe and don't forget to tap the bell. Visit prezerosportstalk.com to explore more conversations on sports, leadership, faith, performance, and innovation. From Sweden to the world. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and make a difference. We'll see you soon. Take care.